Hey, we're Saints. Father Chris here. Welcome to our Crucifixional live stream. Glad to have you, beautiful people, with us on this lovely Thursday. One of the things that people struggle with really throughout life is forgiveness. It's a hard thing to do, and we have to see clearly so we can see through our way into granting and asking others for forgiveness. A very true story just happened yesterday. A person in my parish who had gotten angry with some things that had happened, accused me. We had gotten, into a tete-a-tete, and the person had left the church, was angry and frustrated and left the church, and is now, unfortunately, in the hospital with a serious ailment. I haven't seen the person in probably a year's time, but I got wind about their hospitalization, so I went like I'm supposed to. It was a powerful, powerful visit for me, because as I walked in the door, the person began crying and said, "Father, forgive me." Like, those were the first words that the person said. Not hi, not thanks for coming, not oh my gosh, I'm about to, have a procedure. It was, "Father, forgive me." And in turn, I looked at the person and I said, "Forgive me too." It was amazing. I mean, and in that moment there was like a miraculous reconciliation. Even the person's child was in the room and said, "This is a miracle." And I was like, thanks be to God, that we were able to do so. I don't say it to my credit. I say it more to that person's credit, because they took the initiative and were just, perhaps in the emotion of their sickness, but was just willing to let everything go away and grant forgiveness. We hear that forgiveness is really a conditional that we have to apply in our lives in order to receive God's forgiveness. And you may, be saying to yourself, well, God's forgiveness isn't conditional. You sure? In Jesus' Sermon on the Mount in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 6, we hear the Lord's Prayer, which you all know. Our Father who art in heaven, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And then a few verses later, like right at the end of the Lord's Prayer, we hear the following in verse 14 and 15. "For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. And likewise, the converse is true. If you don't forgive, neither will your Father in heaven forgive you your trespasses." So God's forgiveness to us is conditional, in the sense that He's looking to us to see if we're willing to take that first step. Before He grants forgiveness to us, are we forgiving people? Are we willing to look across someone else's transgressions and let them go? Are we also willing to go to another person and ask for forgiveness for our transgressions? These are seminal questions in our lives as warrior saints, but they're also very difficult, because granting that forgiveness and asking for the forgiveness is a hard battle because of our pride. Sometimes we don't want to let it go. Sometimes we don't want to put ourselves in position of having done wrong, and we hold on to that pride, and we can't seem to overcome that. It's like it's battling us, keeping us away from giving forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. But like we saw just earlier in Matthew 6, God's forgiveness of us is contingent upon whether or not we're willing to do it. So with all of that in mind, how do we find within ourselves the willingness, the ability to forgive? It's a very tough question to answer. We're going to spend a lot of time in the way of the warrior saint addressing that very question. We're working already in our minds on how to put forward a series about forgiveness, because it's so important to all of us. But I want to start with it like it's so important, we're going to devote time to it. It basically is what I'm saying. And you can get that in advance at warriorsaints.org. So click subscribe. With that being said, it's like, I don't know how else to tell you, my beloved warrior saints. It is, if we are going to find ourselves on the road to becoming exceptional human beings, to really being what we're supposed to be, living, to becoming the very best person, the very best version of ourselves, we have to begin by battling with our pride and granting forgiveness and asking for forgiveness. It's only when we find ourselves in this harmonious state with other people that we're really going to be free to really walk on the way of the warrior saint, ending, or if you will, arriving at becoming an exceptional human being. It's not easy. It's really not easy. It's really quite hard to do. But if we don't take that step, and we are not willing to squash our pride a little bit and forgive and ask to be forgiven, we're never going to end up where we want to be. In fact, we'll probably end up more in a, let's say, mediocre lifestyle, with a mediocre life. Maybe it's better to say it like this. We'll just end up kind of stuck in mediocrity. We're not really good, we're not really bad, we're just kind of lukewarm, somewhere lost in the middle. But if we want to find ourselves to be exceptional, powerful and exceptional human beings, the only way to do that is on the way of the warrior saint, right? That's part of it. And part of that process is being a forgiver. Not easy to do. We're going to give you some practical steps in our new series, which you can find at warriorsaints.org. We scroll down about halfway through the page, you'll see the way of the warrior saint. Grab it now. Just get it. Subscribe. Bro, you can do it. Get it right away. Let's learn how to be forgivers so we can continue on the way of the warrior saint, eventually arriving at exceptionality. Love you, beautiful people. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the most heaviest of topics, death. Until then, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.